So this book is very quotable, but it feels like cheating to just pick a meme that's lifted straight from the book. So I'll just, share that I like that this book is the source of the Dougs joke, for as, calling people who are just fans of the Cosmere as Dougs, as opposed to like Cousins of Lopin or...
I prefer Cousins of Lopin, obviously.
Yeah, but that really comes straight out of this book. Well, sorry, I'm realizing that I don't sound very hyped up. Should we try again?
If you'd like.
Nah, I'll just cut this part out.
So, did you ever watch, like, a Doug cartoon?
Doug Funny?
Doug Funny? No.
That was his name.
Maybe
Quail Man?
Yeah, what was the actual show called, though?
Doug.
Just Doug?
Yeah.
Man, we had such great names of television shows in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's something in there about, maybe I should be wearing a belt around my head or something. Like Quail Man.
Yeah, my memories are not that strong. The only episode I really remember is everybody...
I could wear my underwear on the outside of my cargo shorts.
Good Lord. There was a birthday party and everybody got the same ball. And it was so important that Doug got her this ball because it was like the hippest thing. So he had to get her a ball. But it turns out everybody got her the ball. So then it was just the party turned into playing with this ball. I don't know. That's the only thing I remember about Doug.
And this has been Nickelodeon's Doug Watch. Hello and welcome to Cosmere Casual, your casual reader's guide for the Cosmere Curious. I'm your co-host, the Nickelodeon hater, Nick Gorman.
Yeah, why you gotta hate on Nickelodeon?
Do you know how many times as a child I was addressed as Nick? Yeah, exactly.
Nickelodeon.
Yup.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's seared into my memory.
Oh.
I mean,
what a childhood you had. No, that explains a lot.
Don't get it twisted. Love me some Avatar Last Airbender. The kids love Paw Patrol. I'm here for it. I'm still a hater. What's your name?
My name's AJ. I'm your other co-host. And apparently Nickelodeon lover.
Apparently so.
I did marry a Nick, so.
Well, there you go. Today we're talking about Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is mostly a standalone Cosmere.
Mostly.
Yeah.
At this point, until more books are released, and then you go back and you realize that maybe it wasn't as standalone as you thought.
It's a Cosmere novel. I think, anyway. This is our pre-read episode. Spoiler-free. Spoiler-free?
Spoiler-free.
Okay.
It's probably an okay entry point. Probably not, like, the best, but there are definitely things that you're going to be, like, you can read it and understand most of it, but there are definitely going to be points where you're going to be like, what's happening?
I think the only bad time to read Tress of the Emerald Sea is if you're partway through Mistborn Era 1. And, because, I mean, this book is a good, it gives you an orientation to the world of Lumar, right? It talks about the magic system just as every Brando Sando book does. But there is a particular Easter egg that, if you're already familiar with the characters of Mistborn Era 1, sort of reveals one of the fates of one of those characters.
Right.
And if,
The argument for why it may be a good entry point is because it is a lot lighter. It's a much easier read in terms of, like, it's not a slog. It's not super long. I think it's, if you want to get a taste for Brandon Sanderson...
I don't think this is a good... I mean, like... I love this as a book.
If you were worried about, like, diving into an epic fantasy and not, like, digging through the trenches, like, but you still want to read Brandon Sanderson, this may be the book where you start, because it's, I don't know.
I mean, tonally, I think the book most similar to Tress is probably Good Omens, the Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman joint novel, right?
Or the inspiration of this book, which was The Princess Bride.
Yes. I feel like it anyway, yeah. But like it's very much this book feels like Brandon was writing while also referring to Terry Pratchett and Douglas Adams, these great British satirists, right? Of our modern era.
Right.
And it's very out of the normal. It's not his normal writing style, which is why I sort of feel like it's a fantastic curiosity. I love the book on its own merits, but if you're trying to get someone hooked into the Cosmere, or if you are yourself trying to dive into it, it's just so different.
It is very different. But it also, like, we were reading it, and I'm like, man, I am breezing through this book.
And it's funny. It's, Brando doesn't have a reputation for humor, but this book is
And then
there
you
were
remember
multiple
that
times
he's a dad and full of dad jokes.
yeah. Well, and it's very much like The Princess Bride, like some of your Discworld books. It's thtold in the tone of kind of sort of a fairy tale, right?
Right.
And if you liked in the Stormlight Archive how wit goes on these inspirational stories, this is like you gave one of those stories an entire novel.
Right. But let's back up here. Let's talk about kind of outside of the book where this book came from.
Are we going to talk about the pandemic?
I wasn't going to do that directly,
Well,
but I mean, kind of.
Isn't
yes.
that like how it starts, though?
So this is one of the Kickstarter books. So during the pandemic, Brandon didn't have to travel and go see fans or do any of this other crap that I could care no.
God, he didn't.
Couldn't care
All
less.
of his travel and convention schedules got suddenly canceled because of the pandemic.
And then he could do his actual fucking job.
My God, this guy churns out novels faster than maybe not any other author, but
Well, apparently we're reducing his capacity by like 50%.
I mean, I'm just saying he, churns out novels, and I don't want another pandemic to get another 4 unplanned novels. I don't.
But that would be a big
up.
upside. That would be a big upside.
I just look at it as a silver lining.
Anyways, so during the pandemic, he wrote 4 novels without really telling anybody because he had that much extra time. This is one of them. He originally wrote this for his wife.
Yes, and so I think there are different, there's different cover arts of this book around, and that reflects the different publishing companies, right? Which is not that unusual. Right, but normally you just see different covers for different geographies. But even within the U.S., you've got the Dragonsteel cover versus the Tor cover. The Dragonsteel one is more of a premium edition. But
Brando is contracted with Tor for most of his novels, but he had a very unique opportunity with having written 4 novels that nobody knew about. He did not have to publish them with Tor.
does he have to do any?
They're normally contracted before they're written.
Fair enough.
So he didn't have to publish them with Tor. So what he decided to do instead was to start a Kickstarter and say, hey, I have these books, give me money, and I will self-publish them. And if we get a lot of money, then you'll get books plus more. And that's precisely what happened.
Yeah, I think, what was the initial goal? Like just $1 million or something?
I don't know.
And it became the most funded, most backed, both by number of dollars raised and number of backers on Kickstarter
And
of all
fastest,
time.
yeah. Which you can imagine greatly upset the publishing industry.
Upset? Probably, but, it made waves. It changed a lot.
Did. But anyways, Brando was, I'm sure, whatever happened, however the sentiments involved was, there are the Kickstarter versions, and then there are the Tor versions of the books.
Well, it's not just the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter versions are the same as the Dragonsteel ones.
Dragonsteel is Brandon's publishing company.
Yes, Dragonsteel Entertainment is the company that, Brandon and his team run.
Brandon does a lot of things through his Dragonsteel company.
There's merch,
But Dragonsteel is not Tor.
Right.
So anyways.
I think there's another episode we could write about the relationship between Brandon Sanderson and the publishing industry and Audible and stuff, because a lot of that had been sort of background that I just didn't know or care about, and then it came out through the Kickstarter campaigns, hey, I want to do this, but I can't because of this,
Well, so
He's very transparent with his fans.
we use Androids, right? So I just learned through NPR.
Well, kind of. Yes.
I just learned through NPR that people have not been able to click on Audible and purchase a book in the Kindle app if they didn't want to use Apple Pay.
Well, I mean, I've been able to do that on my Android phone.
Well, yes. But if you're on an Apple device, you couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
No idea. Anyways, let's bring it back. So as I said, one of the primary inspirations for this book is The Princess Bride. So during the pandemic, Brandon and his family were watching The Princess Bride, and I guess introducing it to his kids for the first time. I don't know why he waited so long. I mean, our children are young, and we've already made them watch it.
Yes, but our kids are young enough that they don't have any understanding of it.
They can't appreciate it. So my personal history with The Princess Bride is, obviously I'd seen the movie several times and loved it, but I also picked up the book one summer, and I was very dismayed. I couldn't find the unabridged version. It was only abridged. And I was under that illusion for probably, I think it was until you told me. So that was at least like 6 years.
There is
4 to
no
6 years
unabridged version
somewhere.
of The Princess Bride.
I didn't
It's
know that.
fictional device, and it's all all of the notes about what he's cutting out are all satire about.
Well, it was all worth cutting out, so I was like, that makes sense. Sure.
Well, it never existed to begin with. There's nothing to cut out. You know, he just did it to add commentary about,
But I
parody.
didn't know that. Have I told you that I'm super trusting of authors when I shouldn't be?
Yeah.
Or narrators, whatever you want to frame it as.
Well, both. Yeah. So yes, there is no S. Morgenstern.
I
But
do
back
remember
to
I do remember the book being very good. So if you want to read The Princess Bride, the book is also good.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess bringing it back to Tress, the main thing that inspired Brandon to write his take on it was, he was talking about the movie with his wife, his sons and daughters, and they, wait, why doesn't Buttercup do anything the whole movie? She's one of the main characters. She is the Princess Bride. She doesn't do anything the whole movie.
She really doesn't. Which is why it was so exciting when she became the general in Wonder Woman.
Yeah, but so that's sort of what this is a reaction to, right? It's very similar vibes. That's on purpose, but each of the main characters has some sort of agency, and especially Tress of the Emerald Sea. She is the main character, right? I mean, that's like all the way at the
if
end.
you want the ludicrousy of The
Yeah.
Princess Bride, there's definitely some
that's very
ludicrousy in this.
It's very, like I said, it reminds. I didn't read too much. I always get William Golding and William Goldman confused. One of them wrote The Princess Bride, and one of them wrote The Lord of the Flies. Either way, I didn't read too much of either of those authors.
Did not like The Lord of the Flies.
But I didn't read very much of either of them. But the writing style here reminds me very much of Terry Pratchett and Douglas Adams.
Yes.
And if you like that sort of absurdist parody,
Yeah, and you've already mentioned Good Omens. I never connected with Good Omens as much as you did, so I saw more Princess Bride than anything, but sounds like you saw more Good Omens.
well, because in Good Omens, and I know Neil Gaiman is much more controversial than he was when that book was first published and when it was first adapted in an Amazon show, I understand. But in Good Omens, you sort of had a blend of Terry Pratchett's humor and Neil Gaiman's sci-fi fantasy. I don't want to say thriller, but like you brought an intensity to certain scenes, right? That typically isn't there in your more funny Discworld stuff, right? And you get a lot of that same blend of humor with more intensity.
Okay, bringing it all back. So he originally wrote this for his wife, and she told him to share it with the world.
Yeah.
So thank you, Emily.
Do we want to talk about the other sort of inspiration, where I guess in a nutshell, I don't have as strong connection with this, but I guess Brandon Sanderson watches YouTube sometimes, and he saw a YouTube video of when you aerate sand, it behaves like water.
I was going to talk about that later. I didn't know that was an inspiration.
Yeah, it was, and he ever since he saw that, he wanted to use that as part of a setting, as an ocean made out of sand or
something
sandy
non-liquid.
things. Yeah, not a liquid, but behaves like a liquid. So to connect those dots, the Emerald Sea.
All right, fine.
Emerald, 'cause it's
We'll
not
talk about
water.
settings. We'll talk about settings. Sure.
Yeah.
So on this planet, the oceans are made up of spores.
Yeah.
So spores are the things that are being liquefied. Vents send up kind of bursts of air that agitate the spores moving. Those bursts of air are somewhat random. They're more constant than
I was
not.
about to say they're more. You get the sense that they're continuous. The
Except
events are more continuous, except for
random
instances where they stop. Yeah.
Random moments of stopping, and you don't know how long they stop for, when they're going to stop. You
Yeah.
can't predict it. So those bursts of air or the movement of the spores is called the sieve. So when there's no sieve, spores become solid.
Yeah, like you're walking on a beach instead of swimming through it.
Yes, so you can kind of walk across it.
Right.
The spores that make up these oceans actually fall from 12 different moons that are low in orbit. This world is very much not like our own. The moons are static, so you kind of have to travel around the planet in order to see the different moons. Otherwise, you're always going to kind of see the moon that you're close, that you can see. So it's not like Earth. There are compost vats And apparently that's where most people get their food. It's very confusing.
Well,
they don't talk about how disgusting the food is, but like to us,
they
compost fats.
They do talk a lot in this book about how disgusting the food is in a different context.
But they
than what you're
also
talking
say
about.
like, oh,
Yeah.
the island has compost fats, so you'll eat just fine.
I mean, that just anyway, whatever. It's
not talked about enough because my brain is stuck on these compost fats, and there needs to be more about these compost fats.
It's his way of hand waving away how they have soil to grow the crops to feed everybody, right? If you don't have rain in the water, we'll get into why water is special on Numar, but because they can't really rely on rain so much, soil that's a key ingredient in soil, right?
I suppose, yes.
So yeah, the oceans are made up of spores. They're these sand-like things, but they're not just things, they're called aethers. And what's interesting about those is spelled out very clearly in the book. It would take us forever to talk about it anyway, but they react violently with water. And so there's a lot of...
And each of the 12 different kinds of spores react differently, but the very first type of spore that you'll hear about verdant spores, and when water interacts with the verdant spores, vines grow. None of this is a spoiler. All of this gets explained pretty much immediately.
But it is...
You can make these spores inert. Obviously we are sacks of water. If, a spore comes in contact with us, it's pretty likely that it's going to feel water and explode. But there is a way to make those spores inert and not react with water, and that's by having salts or silver. So when the book opens up, we are in a place called Diggins Point, which is a barren saltstone island. So because it's salt, it makes all of the nearby spores inert, so that's why there are humans living there without exploding into vines all the time. Okay.
And yes, that's where the book starts out, but I think in terms of genre for this book, I put it more as a pirate story. Like, she's Tress of the Emerald Sea. On the cover art, there's ships. It's very much in that same vein.
Yes.
I almost think of it like, continuing the Princess Bride analogy, it's like how Wesley became the Dread Pirate Roberts. Is that too much? Is that spoilery?
I mean, the inside flaps give away a lot of things.
Okay.
So I don't think you get more away than that. But let's take a step back, because you skipped a section in my notes. Back to my Cosmere folks. Full-length story is told in Hoyd's voice. Brandon has said that he has kind of used this novel as a way to practice for writing Hoyd's story. So the premise with this book is Hoyd is speaking to someone. So you are my Cosmere aware people. You should be
that belongs in the...
I said you should be able to find clues to figure out who it is.
Well,
that Hoyd is talking to.
The type of person he's talking to.
Yes.
No, if you're looking for a specific identity, it ain't there.
But look out for clues for my Cosmere aware people.
If you're the sort of person who wants to catch every Easter egg, there are, even though this is a pretty good starting point, if you're trying to get into the Cosmere, for tone and writing style aside, there are a lot of Easter eggs in this book. If you're the kind of person who wants to catch every Easter egg on your first read, then I would recommend having already read Mistborn Era 1 for sure. I'm trying to think about if Era 2 has any relevance. Probably not. Elantris, and definitely Warbreaker as well. There are mentions of...
Stormlight.
I was about to say, yeah. There's some references to the Iriali, who are, sort of in the background in Stormlight.
Well, there's also Rock. There's a reference to Rock.
What?
Oh my gosh, we talked about this joke.
Oh yeah, shit.
Oh my god.
It's been weeks, okay?
But we had an entire conversation about this one joke. Of the 50 million that were in this book, we talked about this joke.
I know, but there's also a lot of jokes that we talked about.
Anyways, so that's another reason why maybe that's not the best starting point to the Cosmere, because I mean, you're going to reread we recommend that you reread these books all the time, so you'll catch it all later. Let's talk a little bit more about Tress.
The character of the book?
The character. So she, because, people might want to know the main character that they're getting into. So
yeah, she's not your normal fantasy protagonist.
No, and Hoyd points that out quite a bit in his narration. She is very pragmatic. I think she's a very clear kind of division or contrast to Princess Buttercup.
Well, yes. I think I was about to say, because I'd say, Tress's two main identifiers are that she is very pragmatic and she is not aggressive to the point of also being not assertive, right?
Canadian.
All right, that's a harmful stereotype. A.
Anyways, when I first read this book, I was imagining that they were like 14, or that Tress was like 14 years old.
Oh. No, I mean, like, she's
don't know why.
explicitly like 18 or 19?
No, she like 17.
All right, whatever.
I don't know why I thought that on my first read, but I was just like throwing me off my first read.
But it is
the whole
it
time.
Is,
I'm like, this is like young, like.
Well, she does come across as naive a lot.
Yes.
And it is in a lot of ways.
She doesn't always have like
story.
the super complex thoughts.
I think I would disagree with that. I think
it's nowhere near the complexity of thoughts that you might encounter with Stormlight.
I still disagree with that.
Okay.
I think it's more. I think that's more of an artifact of the writing style. Right?
Yeah. It could be.
Yeah.
But anyways, she's an interesting main character. At times you're like, yes, thank God you made that decision. Like, of course. In any other book, I would have been screaming at the main character to make the very decision that you just made. So thank you. And other times you're just like,
it's almost
what?
like he wrote this story and then decided, like, hey, anytime that the audience is going to be like, just do the obvious thing, he just went back and made her do the obvious thing. And like, it's still it's a good story. It's
still
good.
a good story. You heard that.
Yeah.
Can I say the thing that's on the side cover?
Sure.
So
I'll cut it out if I don't like it.
the story is a pirate movie, but a pirate story, but it's our main character Tress going and saving her beloved.
Well, okay, so that definitely yeah. Okay.
That's what it says on the back cover.
And it is a key part of the premise of the story, right? Like it was probably like, well, what if Princess Buttercup didn't just give up the instant she found out that Wesley had been abducted by pirates, right? And that's
what happened then? Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's very much Buttercup is going off to save her Wesley.
Except definitely not Buttercup.
And
this woman has a brain on her head. I think that's about it. I mean, there's a little bit of vocab. Lunagree, it's where the spores fall. You really don't need to memorize it. It doesn't matter to the story that much.
There's a
even the name of the planet.
Term.
Even the name of the planet, Lumar.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, thanks for podcasting with me, dear.
Thanks for podcasting with me.
And thanks, audience, for listening to us. And yeah, our email address is cosmerecasual@gmail.com. Cosmere Casual is our handle on all of the social medias that we're on. Our intro and outro music is licensed through Tribe of Noise. The artist is Ketsa, and the song is Odyssey.
And until next time, keep your wits about you.